My media memorabilia collection is broad and varied, but a whole section of it is dedicated to one film in particular, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And that's because this film is close to my heart. It's my favorite film of all time, and it accepts no competitors, no matter how big they might be. Close Encounters was first released in the US in November 1977, only a few months after that other industry-changing monster hit, Star Wars. But my relationship with Star Wars was strained back then, even though I hadn't even seen it yet. Don't get me wrong, though. Everything I'd read and heard about the film impressed me, and the clips I'd seen on TV blew me away. So what was my problem with Star Wars? Well, the problem was that I was 12 years old. And at that age, you feel compelled, by peer pressure and parental promptings, to take those first fumbling steps towards adulthood. And in the process, you question everything that you once loved as a child, be they toys or books or other things, and question if you're now too old to still be allowed to love them. And as enticing as Star Wars was to me, there seemed to be elements of it that were aimed at children much younger than myself. Close Encounters was introduced to me that December by a UK news report similar to this CBS News video. That report featured the air traffic control scene, along with clips of impressed US moviegoers who voiced their approval of the film. The report seemed to equate the film's reception to the frenzy that had greeted Star Wars months before, but it was the film's subject matter that really made me sit up and listen.
EWA 471, contact 134.4.
EWA 517, do you want to report a UFO? Over.
Oh, yes, I would. But sadly, I hadn't seen one, and I still haven't to this day, unlike the ghost I saw a few years before this legendary film's release. I've already made a video on that experience, so I won't go into detail here, but I suspect that incident sparked my interest in the mysteries of the unknown, and one of the most fascinating unknowns for me was alien visitation to this world. And that, of course, is what Close Encounters was all about. So I scoured newspapers and the scant few movie magazines we had in Britain back then for any extra information I could get. The film would finally be released in UK cinemas in 1978, but a piece of merchandise would be released before it. And it would take me by pleasant surprise one day while I was browsing in a shop looking to spend my money on the usual magazines and sweets. I glanced to my right where I saw a book display full of copies of one particular novel, written by Steven Spielberg himself, though I think I remember reading that the novel was actually written by a ghostwriter. My jaw dropped at the sight of those books. There was no contest. I would forgo the sweets and magazines in favor of this surprise movie tie-in, but first I had to run all the way home to beg for more money to buy it. Once safely in my possession, I devoured the book in 2 nights of solid reading, trying to imagine the movie scenes in my head as I did so, and aching even more to see the film. But that privilege would have to wait until April 1978, on a family holiday that would mix childhood, adolescence, and even a taste of adulthood. My older brother and I would be treated to 2 trips to the cinema on that holiday. The first for Star Wars, and the second for Close Encounters, neither of which we'd seen until then. My preference for Close Encounters provided a bridge, for my adolescent self, to enjoy Star Wars like the child I'd once been. And enjoy it I certainly did. But my loyalty still belonged to Close Encounters. So where does that taste of adulthood come in? Well, also on that holiday, I would take a shine to this book on a family shopping trip, The Fog by James Herbert. The book enticed me with the extract of a review emblazoned on its back cover, and I asked if I could have it. Anyone who's read this infamous horror novel will tell you that it is certainly for adults only, but I thrilled to it during that holiday, and it became my dark secret. So I finally got to see Close Encounters of the Third Kind, after months of anticipation. I was a little nervous when I entered the cinema with my mother and brother. After all, what if I didn't like it? What if the film let me down in some way? Then the film began, and I knew from that memorable opening title sequence, with John Williams' score rising from nowhere, followed by that sudden flash reveal, I knew there and then that I wasn't going to be disappointed. Perhaps because I'd waited so long to see it, I remember trying to absorb every second of the film, as though it could suddenly be snatched from me at any moment, and I'd never see it again. Roy Neary's first encounter with the aliens was brilliantly handled. I already knew from reading the book that the aliens were friendly, so I wasn't fooled by Spielberg's repeated efforts to make us wonder about that. I also noticed the moment in that scene where the visions of Devil's Tower were implanted in his mind. The minutes raced by, and so did those UFOs in one of the many amazing special effects sequences this film had to offer. I was especially fascinated by Neary's desire to make sense of his experience by exploring sources of information about alien encounters that were available to him, trying to find the answer to the meaning of his experience.
Ronnie, I saw something last night that I can't explain.
After all, I'd had my own experience that I couldn't explain, and that had developed into a fixation with the idea of ghost hunting. And to top it all off, that majestic grand finale at Devil's Tower. If you ever get the chance to see this film on the big screen, please don't ignore that opportunity. You haven't really heard or seen, and certainly not felt, the mothership's approach until you watch it on the big screen. I'm glad to say that Close Encounters fully lived up to my expectations and surpassed most of them. Douglas Trumbull's special effects were awesome and are still remarkable to this day. And, according to Spielberg, they even played around with CGI in this production.
Colin was in Los Angeles also. I remember Colin was one of the first people I ever met, Colin Cantwell. And Colin did the very, very first CGI test in history for Close Encounters, and actually on a computer generated 3 flying discs with lights flying across a football stadium, all computer generated. It might have been the first, for a movie, computer generated test ever done.
The performances were excellent too, especially from 3-year-old Cary Guffey.
I would bring gift boxes to the set with a toy inside, torturously unfolding this gift wrapping, undoing the bow one ribbon at a time and taking down the sides of the gift wrapping until a little toy car came out. And at one point in the movie he actually says,
Holy! Holy!
My head was in the clouds on the drive home to our holiday apartment. My mind focused on how many alien civilizations there could be in the universe and whether any of them were truly visiting our world. Now, after seeing Close Encounters, I would ache to see a UFO and would regularly watch the skies in the hope of seeing one. I've made a playlist for this video featuring other videos that I've borrowed footage from and others that I simply like. If you enjoyed watching this video, then please consider clicking the like button and subscribing for more. My name is Ed, and I post regularly on this platform. You'll find a list of future uploads in the description section of my channel trailer. I also invite you to browse the channels that I'm subscribed to. You'll find many memorabilia and media-related channels there that may interest you. Thanks for watching.